This is the Jason Walker Show. Two-time National Sports Media Association Montana Sportscaster of the Year and three-time loser, the Jason Walker Show. The best local and statewide sports coverage, featuring the biggest guests from Montana.
Flint Rasmussen joining us here on the Jason Walker Show.
He's freaking exhausting, too. You used to dance a lot more. Yeah, I know, lady. I'm 51 years old now.
The NAI Hall of Famer Mike Van Diest joining us here, Jason Walker Show. And is it just a deal where quarterbacks have to be good golfers?
Well, that's all they have time for. They don't work out. They don't lift weights. They don't do anything else. They might as well go get on the golf course and at least have some fun.
And from across the country,
Doug Gottlieb, our guest here on the Jason Walker Show.
End of the day, remember, it's your show. It's got your name on it.
Howie Mandel, our guest here.
Jason Walker, deal or no deal?
The Jason Walker Show, broadcasting from the Major Mortgage Mancave. Here's Jason Walker.
All right, happy, Tuesday. Jason Walker Show, Major Mortgage Mancave. Thanks for being here. Big show coming up today. Paul Schwedelson, Bozeman Daily Chronicle, will join us. We'll talk about Jeff Choate, his comments in both The Athletic and also his press conference yesterday. And in studio, Major Mortgage Mancave, the man, Kyle Mihelish. There he is on camera, picking his nails. At least it wasn't his nose. Kyle Mihelish will join us, Capital football coach, coming up here in just a couple of minutes. So fun stuff. Looking forward to talking to Coach. Looking forward to talking high school football. Hopefully. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Hopefully we get a season to talk about. What else? We got on this day in history coming up and a whole lot more. Don't forget this week, Scott Evans will join us tomorrow. Helena High coach. I can't have you guys in the same studio at the same time. They argue. Amanda Robertson, I believe, will join us. PGA or LPGA golfer on Thursday. Lance Hartzler will join us Friday, as well as a member of the Pac-12 network, because the Pac-12, along with the Big Ten, came out today and said we're not. Well, they said they're canceling their fall sports seasons, but are they moving them to the spring? That's the big question. The Pac-12 is going even further. They're not allowing any sports until January 1st of 21. That includes basketball. So that includes a lot of non-conference games. And I believe the Montana Grizz are supposed to play UCLA this year, because they were supposed to play a couple years ago. The Fires that canceled that. Was it last year? Anyway. But so no non-conference games. So volleyball, basketball, men's and women's basketball. This is all affected along with football. So that was the big news of the day. Across the country. Still waiting on the Big 12, which is supposedly on the fence. SEC and ACC came out today and said they're still planning to play football this fall. Apparently, their doctors are saying different than the Big 12 and the Pac-12 doctors. But the Big 10 came out today and told Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic there are no less than 10 football players in the Big 10 that have contracted COVID this summer and now have myocarditis. We talked a lot about it yesterday, the heart problems. This is a big deal, folks. This isn't just made up stuff. So there you go. Let's see. What else have we got going on? Our daily COVID update. 97 new cases. There are 590 in Yellowstone County, 290 in Bighorn, 59 in Lewis and Clark, 92 Missoula County, 65 Flathead, and Gallatin County down to 30 active cases. 77 total deaths, 77 currently hospitalized in the hospital, 1,485 active, 3,542 recovered, and 1,000 new tests done. Still under 200,000 tests for the state since March. There you go. There's our COVID update. All right, let's get to what we're going to chat about, and that is Jeff Choate. Yesterday held a press conference. We know about his press conference, or not press conference, but what he spoke to the Athletic and Bruce Feldman on Friday, and was very blunt, calling out the NCAA, calling out the Power Fives, saying that your requirements for testing from the NCAA caused the Big Sky and a lot of these other schools to basically shut down until the spring. And there's no guarantee we're going to still have a spring football season. Coach Choate yesterday spoke to the media, and we've got a couple of sound bites here. Here's one.
And I'm not hopeful that there's I think that there's going to be a segment of our population within the college football world that chooses to go do their own thing, and say, we're going to go make the money, and we're going to, if we got to pay the players, we'll pay the players, whatever. But that's not going to work for everybody. And here's one thing I want to point out, and I don't mean to monopolize this, but this is Bill Lamberty said this to me yesterday. Might have been the day before. When we talk about like college football, right? What we think about in college football is 5% or so. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg. When you think college football players, you think immediately Power 5, okay? College football playoff, Alabama, SC, Dabo Swinney, blah, 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 right? Nothing could be further than the truth. You go down to the junior college level, the NAI level, which we have a lot of in Montana, Division III, Division II, FCS, that's the vast majority of college football. And here we're talking about this little tiny percent. Make sure they get theirs at the expense of everybody else. And that's what I mean by we've got to change this thing. We've got to look at doing this differently because, as Bill pointed out, those kids that play NAI and Division III football, those are the ones that are volunteering to coach your kids' youth team. Those are the kids that are going to education and becoming high school football coaches and math teachers. And, those, you get what I'm saying? Like we can't lose that. It's too valuable. And quite honestly, I mean, I'm obviously biased in this. I mean, I'm a product of that. I played NAIA football. I had coaches in high school that cared about me. I had tremendous experience in a small town, and it motivated me and inspired me to get into education. And that road is what led me to Montana State as a head football coach. It wasn't like I woke up and I'm like, well, I'm making a lot of money and I'm done playing in the NFL. And so I'm going to go, I'm going to go over here and see if they'll let me be the linebacker coach because I got this playing experience. That's this much of college football. And we got to keep it in perspective, especially, and it's easier to do in a place like Montana because we do have, you got Montana Tech and Montana Western and on and on. And so, sorry for getting on my soapbox. Thank you.
Coach Choate is very smart. And I agree with a lot of what he said. And he said in the Athletic article on Friday, this decision to whatever we're going to do in the fall should have been made in June, not the second week of August. And, the players getting going, stopping. He talked about it being on a hamster wheel. He had more to say in his press conference yesterday, and here's another quote.
And I tend to think that is a problem. I think that's something that we're going to have to, you would have to push it up. You basically be doing kind of fall camp, winter camp, really right after the first of the year. Because you can't go, if you're going to do it at all, you better have this thing done by mid-April. Because they need that 6 weeks of kind of freedom, because month of May, generally for semester schools, they're off doing their own thing. And then you got to reboot sometime in early June to prepare for the fall of 21. Now, the one thing I will say is we cannot try to force this to happen in the spring at the expense of the fall of 21. I think we can all survive a year without this, but 2 falls is going to be devastating to our game and, possibly to a lot of athletic departments and football programs nationwide. And so I think whatever we choose to do in the spring cannot be at the expense of a full legitimate season in the fall of 21.
There's Coach Choate talking about moving the season to the spring, timing-wise, how's it going to affect? Because that's been a big deal. Everybody's talked about player safety, the health and the safety of the players. And if you go to a spring football season that ends in late May or early June, that's going to push the fall season back. And Coach Choate talking about that, saying we can lose one season. And I've literally been saying this for months. We can lose a whole year of football and sports, but we can't lose 2. And so you got to do this the right way. One final other quote from Coach Choate, and this one says a lot too.
I think that's why whatever we do has to be really well thought out. I don't think we can jump back into this kind of limbo that we've been in for quite some time. And maybe that's the best argument for if things are not pretty clear by, say, November, that might be the best argument for just saying, let's go to the fall of 21, because I do feel like we're going to lose some kids potentially, but we're going to lose a lot more if we keep them on this hamster wheel and nobody knows what the heck's going on. And so I think whatever this next move is is just really critical for our game in the short run. In the long run, I think we'll all kind of get back to, there'll be, like I said, there'll be some changes that take place in college football. And I think that the game will survive this pandemic and some of the other things that are going on within the game. But it's going to take a lot longer to get it back if we keep screwing up, and meaning that we keep the indecision creates the anxiety and will force a lot of kids to say, you know what, I'm good.
Lots of interesting comments there from Jeff Choate, Montana State football coach yesterday, and video courtesy of Montana State Athletics. It's interesting, and we're going to talk to Coach Kyle Mihelish about it. He played at an NAIA school, and like Coach Choate, but there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of answers that we still don't have. What's the high school season look like? Because if you have to test at the college level, how are we going to test at the high school level? There's a lot of unanswered questions, but we're going to talk to Kyle Mihelish when we come back here in a few minutes on the Jason Walker Show. Paul Schwedelson of the Bozeman Daily Chronicle will talk more, break down more Coach Choate's comments. He did as well talk about, he said he had a great idea to make some money. Get 1,000 tickets for Bobcat fans and 1,000 tickets for Grizzly fans, and you sell them for $10,000 a piece, and you play a Cat Grizz game in Butte. I mean, that would make some money. And then the winner gets all the money. No 50-50 split, he said. Like, this is the winner take all. So, but he already did claim the state championship for Montana because they practiced more than Montana did this fall before the season got moved. So he claimed a Big Sky championship and the state championship. Also, he's thinking that if the Power 5 moves and they don't practice, that he can claim the FBS championship like UCF did. I like it. I think it's a heck of an idea. So there you go. We're going to get more on his thoughts with Paul Schwedelson, like I said, coming up on this day in history, and a bunch more on the way too. So Pac-12, Big 12, moving their seasons for all fall sports, and including some winter sports in the Pac-12. They won't do anything for the rest of the calendar year. We'll come back. We'll get Kyle Mihelish's thoughts on high school football and Coach Choate next on The Jason Walker Show. Have you thought about buying a home and just don't know where to begin? Well, when it comes to one of the most important purchases one can make, we understand it can be frustrating and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. Let the Major Mortgage team help you with all your mortgage needs. Major Mortgage means major service, and we would love the opportunity to help you today. Give J.R. McFadden, NMLS number 1246357, a call today at 406-465-1918, or you can visit him at 2001 11th Avenue, Building A, Suite 3 in Helena. Major Mortgage is a division of AMCAP Mortgage, NMLS number 129122, equal housing lender.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call State Farm agent Mike Miller in Helena today. Yes, it's true that Montana is a long way from the Gulf Coast, but you can bring that Cajun flavor home with a stop at Cafe Zydeco. From po' boys to classic sandwiches, Cafe Zydeco has all the best Cajun in town. Are you in the mood for seafood gumbo or crawfish etouffee? Maybe you're craving jambalaya with some shrimp and grits. Head in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or call ahead for pickup or delivery. Cafe Zydeco will fix all your southern cravings, even on a chilly Montana day. Cafe Zydeco is a proud sponsor of The Jason Walker Show. Do you love to look at photos of Montana, from animals to landscapes and more? Are you looking for a place to get your senior pictures or family portraits done? Are you a business owner looking to upgrade the decor in your offices? Well, look no further than Mark LaRoe Photography. Mark has been shooting beautiful photos all across the Treasure State, from rodeos to portraits, and would love to work with you. Visit marklaroephotography.com to see many masterpieces of his work, then give him a call to schedule your own photo shoot. Or to purchase one of his fantastic pieces, stop by Spirit of the Big Sky Gallery on Custer in Helena. marklaroephotography.com.
Store-wide savings are what you'll find when you shop for new home furnishings at Rucker's Furniture. This means tremendous values on Helena's largest in-stock selection of home furnishings. When you shop Rucker's, you'll find store-wide savings on the furniture you want for every room in your home. And you'll also find our selection of Serta iComfort, the most comfortable beds in Helena. 12-month financing is available with approved credit on most purchases over $299. Ask for details. You'll find store-wide savings at Rucker's Furniture, 1010 Dearborn, Helena.
Welcome back to the Jason Walker Show.
Welcome back inside the Major Mortgage Mancave, Jason Walker Show on a Tuesday. More with Coach Jeff Choate from Montana State coming up. Talk to Paul Schwedelson of the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. And we'll break down Coach's comments. He had a great press conference yesterday. He really did. And of the 34 minutes, he spoke for like 30 of them, and 28 of them were serious. But he did a great job. So we'll talk about that in a minute, or in a little bit. But joining us now here inside the Major Mortgage Mancave is a guy that actually knows Jeff Choate very well. He went to school with him down at Western. It is Capital football coach Kyle Mihelish, and he joins us now here in the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. And Coach, this is, well, first off, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like the new digs.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a little different from the last time you and I talked in studio. Good summer for you?
Yeah, it's been a good summer. Spend a lot of time with family, but also we've had a great summer as far as our kids. Once we got the go-ahead June 12th, I believe that was, which was a Monday, after having that layoff and hiatus and Zoom meetings. Yeah. And one positive about that is we found new ways to communicate. I mean, we certainly used our resources, and we were able to have some position meetings online and through Microsoft Teams and through Zoom. And actually, it worked out well for us. I mean, we got a lot done. But the summer has been good. The kids did great in the weight room and outside, and the workouts and practicing all social guidelines set forth by the district and recommendations by the county and MHSA, and we followed all of those things, and we had a great summer.
Did you do anything non-football related for the first time in a while?
A week ago, I took my 3 children to Yellowstone.
I saw that.
Hadn't been there in 12 years. It was great. We logged some miles on that Saturday. We went to see the Grand Canyon and the Yellowstone. That was my one goal. I wanted to see that waterfall, and it was impressive.
Nice. Your daughter, big award this spring, right? Or she's going to Missoula.
She's going to Missoula to run track.
Yeah.
She did get the Jude Gleason Award.
That's right, yeah.
From the kind of the student athlete of Capital High School as far as girls are concerned. And so I'm happy for her. She's put in a lot of good work.
Well, you do good work too. Kyle Mihelish joining us here in the Major Mortgage Mancave. All right, so you went to school with Jeff Choate. Was he as open and honest then as he is now?
Yeah, I was the underclassman. Choate was upperclassman, very vocal, very enthusiastic, very much a hard worker. No, he was a good role model to have, and has developed a good friendship. There was a lot of us down there, a lot of guys coaching in the state of Montana that were down at Western at that time, whether they be at Montana State or scattered throughout our state or scattered around the country. We're lucky to go to school with a lot of good guys.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, and I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the air, but you look at some of those guys, Nick Howlett, Scott Evans, Manny Garza, Choate, B.J. Robertson,
Brian Armstrong.
I mean, these are all guys that have had success both at the high school and the collegiate level, and you're right there with them.
Yeah, no, it's like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm glad I made the decision that I did to go to Western because of those lifelong friendships, and those guys are just a phone call away. Whether it's just a talk or hey, what do you think about this, or have some ideas, or have some questions. So yeah, it's a real good group of guys.
So when Jeff Choate got the job at Montana State, did you expect a call? I mean, he took BJ and Brian.
No, I'm not in a point in my life right now where I want to make that jump right now.
Kyle Mihelish joining us here on the Jason Walker Show. Last week it came out, I don't know if it's been approved yet by the Board of Governors and their infinite wisdom, MHSA Board of Governors, but non-conference games for AA and Class A I've seen now going to be scrapped. So you guys are only going to play a 7-game schedule starting a couple of weeks later, and instead of August 28th, it'll be September 11th, it looks like. Well, September 10th, I think, for Helena High, but you guys for the 11th. losing games is never fun, and hopefully we can get a season. But what was the decision behind non-conference games being scrapped?
You know, I don't know if I've received a firm confirmation on anything. Part of me says is maybe it's kind of so we can get more of an organizational plan. Whether we have a soft opening of school or an online version of school. I think it's real difficult for kind of the policymakers, decision makers to kind of be on the same page right now with all of this being new. But with us losing those non-conference games, you know, it'll give us some more time to, you know, get the kids prepared. I mean, when you look at that too, we'll basically have 3 weeks of practice and then a game week. And I was looking at the calendar when we had a staff meeting last week, we could get up to 22 practices in.
Oh, nice.
Because we're not going to go two-a-days. I mean, we have so much time to get some things done. And you have 3 weeks, like I said, and then a game week. So we could get 22 practices in pretty easy.
It's almost like spring ball.
It is almost like spring ball.
For college. And no two-a-days, that's going to be big. And it's a big adjustment for players and coaches alike.
Sure.
I mean, the players are going to love it.
Yeah. You know, we'll do a good, strong... It'll be a full morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're just going to go practice for 2 hours. I mean, we're going to have weight training and we're going to have meetings and, you know, kind of treat it like the college does now because they can't do two-a-days. So their practice days are a little longer.
Right.
I mean, they'll get a break and then we'll, you know, it'll be good. We'll still get a lot of good work in.
Kyle Mihelish joining us, the Capital football coach here at Jason Walker Show. You mentioned the school. You're a teacher. And take out the football aspect of things right now, just from the teaching aspect. How tough was the spring, and where are we headed for the fall? Because I think the plan right now is a couple of days in
AA, C day,
split
BB,
up, and
yeah. So right now, as far as I understand it, Monday, Tuesdays are going to be those kids chosen to go on that A day. The Wednesday is going to be an off day, kind of an online. They're going to sanitize the school.
Okay.
And then Thursday, Friday, those kids that missed the first half of the week are going to come in the second half. I think it's real limited on who you have in your classroom as far as 12 to 15 kids, social distancing. So again, you're going to be working with them personally, and they're going to be working with them online as well.
Okay, which is tough.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes down.
Okay, you're in the high school, so it's easier to tell high school kids that they have to wear the masks.
Mm-hmm.
Gives me some advice on what you're gonna, how teachers that teach younger kids can deal with this.
You know,
because you can't tell me a 6-year-old in first grade is going to keep his mask on.
I know. Have you ever been in a kindergarten class?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've always marveled at elementary teachers and how patient they are and how good they are with kids. And you know, we're going to still have kids in high school who say, "No, I'm not going to wear my mask. You know, you're infringing on my rights." And you know, as long as if it's a school policy, then it's a school policy. I mean, that's just like
wearing a hat.
So like when we had a hat rule and kids wore hats, I was like, hey, you know, you take your hat off. And I guess that's going to be the same thing with the mask. You know, and I don't know if we're social distancing that the mask can come off or all the time when you're in the school, or we're going to have the mask on. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and school's supposed to start soon.
So
this probably should be figured out. Wes Ross, by the way, says hi.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good great coach up there at GFCZ now. All right, back to the football now. It's Kyle Mihelish joining us here in the studio, Mike Miller, State Farm Hotline. Are you confident that a full season can get played?
I think once we get going, sure. I mean, I think it's to the point where as long as we're ready to go on Friday, the thing that, you know, kind of agreeing with what Choate had to say, listening to his comments, you know, if we're going to go, let's go. But if there's any doubt in your mind, whether it be the MHSA or the athletic directors or the superintendents, then let us know now. I mean, and then we can deal with those decisions. But if it's a go, let's go. I mean, I would really not like it to, you know, we start practice on Friday. We're going to turn it into kind of a records day and make sure we're all organized and then get going on Monday. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to collect, you know, all of the physicals and concussion forms and all of that on Friday, to me, we're going. And then, you know, then on Monday when we start handing out gear, next week when we start handing out gear, you know, this is a selfish thing to say as a football coach, but every football coach I know in the state of Montana or the country is thinking about it. So all of a sudden I issue gear to 85 kids on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of next week, and then all of a sudden by next Friday they pull the plug on that. I'm going to have a hard time gathering 85 sets of gear, when you have 85 helmets out and each of those helmets cost $330.
Yeah.
That's a coaching logistic nightmare right there. And those are things that I don't think people understand. Like this just isn't, we just don't show up on Friday and we're playing a football game.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes.
Yep. I've been very vocal since March that we need to, and Coach Choate talked about it, like we can survive a whole year without sports. It would suck for the seniors. There's no question about that. But at the end of the day, is their safety more important than playing fall football?
Sure. Well, yeah, and I guess I'm not scientifically inclined to answer that, but it would be a horrible thing if, the pandemic affects kids that are playing football, whether it be the AA or Class C or whatever it is, and then you have to shut that program down, and then what do? Shut the school down, and then you have those COVID cases. And you reference testing. Our common questions were before a kid entered the building and having a mask were, do you feel nauseous? Do you have a fever? And has anybody tested positive for COVID in your family in the last 14 days? And we kept record of all of those things. And, that's as far as our testing is, and I don't know what would be implemented, or I'm sure when a kid comes back with a positive test and say, we were up at Glacier playing Glacier, then what does that look like?
Right, because then that affects it. You see it in Major League Baseball with 4 teams affected because one team was or had some positive tests. So, I mean, it's a trickle-down effect, and nobody knows any answers, and I think that's the problem is that there are no answers. Yeah. As Kyle Mihelish joins us here, Mike Miller, State Farm Hotline. Coach, when you guys aren't required to do the testing that the college guys are.
No.
And I guess that makes it a little bit easier to throw the kids out. But what scares me, and this is part of what the Big 12 and the Pac-12 decided today with postponing their seasons, is the myocarditis, the long-term effects that we don't know. There's no less than 10 right now football players in the Big 10 that had COVID. Now they have this heart issue. That bothers me as a parent of a former high school kid and soon-to-be high school kid.
Sure.
That the long-term effects. And to me, it's not worth risking their safety to go play a game on a Friday night.
Sure.
That's just my thoughts.
I know. And I certainly would not want to put a young man in harm's way. And those are, I know Tim McMahon, our athletic director, has done a fantastic job trying to develop a plan and dealing with the county health officials, and they are constantly talking with one another. And I know the MHSA met with the governor last week, and all of that information filtered down to the ADs as of Friday and over the weekend. And I know there was an athletic director meeting today, and I don't know exactly what was said, but I think the biggest concern and problem they're having is, yes, having all counties, health departments being on the same page. And what does a football game on Friday night look like? Some people are interpreting it as 50 per sideline. Some people are interpreting it as 50 total, which I could not imagine. If you're going to play a football game with 50 total, that means, say, 25 and 25.
Right.
And then that's on the sideline. But then you're axing numbers off the top because you still need referees, you still need medics, you still need a chain crew. So rolling into a football game on Friday night with 20 kids, that is a disservice to those kids. You're putting them in harm's way.
Well, I mean, Class C 6 and 8 man would argue that they do it literally every weekend.
Sure. But the numbers of it all, I mean...
Right. No, yeah. And that's the whole thing that we saw with baseball in Legion, and I'm glad they were able to get to their state tournament, was nobody knew if it was the 250 including the players or the fan. I mean, it was just nobody knew. And you see the problems in Missoula County. So if you have a game scheduled with Sentinel or Hellgate or Big Sky at Missoula, there could be some questions if that game's even going to get played.
I know. And, to me, the long-term effect of those decisions, just like losing football for a year, losing it for 2 years, so we're going to go play a Missoula school with 20 kids, and one coach or whatever that may be. And then, obviously, you're going to try and pick your 20 most athletic kids, but then where are your 2s? And then where are your 3s? And that week of practice. So you're telling them, well, you're not going to play this week, but we want you around. Right. Go do it. We're expected you to be on time and be in the weight room and work hard at practice, but you're not going to play because now we have
to travel.
Not even going to get to travel. So that's the thing that worries me right now just about the game of football. Not necessarily just not the virus aside.
Right.
It really makes me nervous about football because football in the past few years obviously taken a hit.
Yep.
You know, all of a sudden, a lot of people think you throw a helmet on, you're going to get a concussion, which is unfair to the sport. And I've always thought that concussion talk is real. People do get concussions. I think last year, the year before, we had 1 concussion in our entire program.
Wow.
And that's through freshman, JV games, varsity games. So you're talking, 20, 25 games.
Right.
And we have 1 concussion. So that takes a hit, but football still takes a bad rap for a lot of that stuff. But we've learned different ways of coaching, coaching, tackling more,
right.
The hawk roll tackle and concentrating, just different techniques. And that mentality has changed football for the better. But this really concerns me as far as if we can play, great. The other argument is that other people interpret it. We have 50 on this side, 50 on that sideline, and then we whack 5 off the top, and so we're down to 45 on both sides because you still need chain crew, referees. So then if you had 1 coach, you have 44 kids. If you have 5 coaches, you can have 40 kids on the sideline.
Yep.
So that's more manageable, and you could filter in those kids that are kind of your tweeners and your twos to still have an experience of traveling, being on the sideline, and those types of things because you have obviously a larger amount you can deal with. And that's what most are pushing for. But some counties, and say for example like Missoula, is interpreting it as 50 total.
Right. And that's no fans in the stands.
No fans.
So, I mean, as a parent, you don't get to see your kid play their last season if there is a season.
If there is a season. And as long as we're in the stadiums, the only way they can watch it is on that NFHS.
Right.
And by that.
Yep.
And another, and this was brought up and it hadn't been talked about. My question was, so we play a JV game at 3 with that group of 40 and 5 coaches or whatever it is. And since you can't have stands, what do we do with that group? Because all of my coaches are sophomore through varsity coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're varsity football coaches. So nobody necessarily knew, do we put them in the stands? Do we just put them on the bus, send them home? So then I have to send 2 coaches home after the JV game with that group of kids that can't stay and watch, be a part of it and watch their teammates. And then 2 coaches, thanks for coaching this week, you get to go home.
Nuts. So there's a lot of and I've been saying this since March. There's so many unanswered questions that we can talk about losing a season, but it's everything else that's involved, or playing a game and everything else involved. I said basically there's 3 options for MHSA this year, and this includes all sports and obviously football. We either start and finish. Would you rather start and finish, which is obviously what everybody wants to do? And I think there's 4 options. So there's that. Do you want to practice and have the season pulled September 9th?
Sure, that could happen.
Right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to play a couple of games and have the season pulled, or have no season at all?
Well, first and foremost,
I know everybody wants to start and finish the season, but take that off the table.
Yeah.
You have those 3 other options. We practice and then don't play a game, or we just cancel it now and don't even practice, or we get a couple of games in and then call it.
Those are a lot of different scenarios, but I would certainly want to be around the guys and coach them and practice. And I guess if the powers that be pull it after 2 games, then they pull it. But I think the kids need something. And pandemic aside, and I know it's when we were able to be around the kids this summer. I mean, there's just kind of a different level of excitement.
Yeah,
you could tell they wanted to be there. There was only a couple times I had to make some phone calls to a couple kids and say, hey, where are you at? Oh, I'm working. But, I mean, it wasn't a struggle to get them there. Once word was out that, hey, we're having Skelly against Helena High on Tuesday night, they're coming out in droves. So I know they need something. They want something. Like you said, certainly bad for the seniors if this were to occur. I certainly know that firsthand with my daughter, and then kind of getting the rug pulled out of them after the semifinal game, and they're going to go play for the state championship. You look back at it now and go, I'm not a naysayer, but it would have been nice just to play that last day and looking back on what we know now, I think it could have happened.
And then no track season either. So.
And then no track season. So we've lived with disappointment in our household for the last 6 months.
Well, and you also haven't won a state championship yet, so that's
right.
6 years. So, or 5 years. You're going into 6.
Yeah.
Kyle Mihelish, our guest here, Jason Walker Show. Just a couple of final quick ones. But we've seen college football, college volleyball, college sports move to the spring. Is that something you could see happening in MHSA?
Well, that's on the table as well. I saw a little calendar the other day and talked with Tim McMahon about that. That if it's canceled or say more so postponed, from my understanding, football would start in about mid-February. And I don't know how that looks. Have you ever stepped outside in mid-February? Yeah. It's not fun.
No, it's a little like the talk has been. It's nice in the September, October games and gets bad in November when you make a playoff run. It's a little reverse then. We hopefully get nicer weather.
That's right.
We're not guaranteed of nice weather in March, April, May.
And that's a lot of the coaches on staff saying, how's this going to look? I mean, what's the field going to look like? What's the ground going to look like? What's the temperature going to be? And I guess if that's the case and they postpone it, then I guess we'll roll in February.
It'd be really nice to have turf over at Vigilante right about now, wouldn't it?
It would be, wouldn't it?
Kyle Mihelish, our guest here, Jason Walker Show. It's just there's like I keep saying, there's so many unknowns, and people give me a hard time on social media because I'm advocating to take a year off. We don't know enough about this disease. We don't know the long-term health effects. And I get that there's seniors that would be very frustrated and upset. But at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a student first. And this goes from high school to college. The student, Trevor Lawrence said that, these kids are going to get sent home. Well, they're not. They're still going to be on campus. You still get that camaraderie. And I know that sports is all about, teamwork and competitiveness and everything. I hate to see a whole season lost. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I want safety first, and that's I don't want a Noah Kovic, who you'd love to have on your football team, to not have a wrestling season have a wrestling season and someone gets sick.
Sure,
that type of deal, and or Bridger Grovem. I mean, it's the same type of thing. Would you like to have Noah, by the way, play football?
I had Noah in class. We went after him a couple of years ago to play football, and he was considering it. And I know his grandfather, Halcrow, was pushing him pretty hard to do it, but wrestling in that family is first and foremost.
Yeah, well, he's a state champ. He just won a big tournament. We had him on the air yesterday. But,
did he?
Where would you put him?
Probably a linebacker type. Zane McCormick was a big time wrestler.
Yeah.
We have Kovic's cousin coming up, Tyler, who's going to be a sophomore, and I don't know how much wrestling he did, but usually on the football field, you can tell who has wrestled just by the way they tackle. And Zane was such a great, leading tackler last year for us, and he was a strong wrestler. They understand body position, they understand leverage, angles, a lot of different things. So he'd probably end up being a linebacker for us.
You'd love that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
You have a good linebacking core now, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's not throw anybody under the bus. Bottom line, give me your honest assessment. Will there be a football season? High school.
Depends on what day you're asking me.
Okay. What is it? August 11th.
I certainly want a football season to happen. But as the short history has shown us, if I were a betting man, I don't know if there's going to be a season. It's just...
the unknown.
The unknown. It's the unknown, and it's a constant unknown since last March. When we came out of the order of, we're coming out of this, and then all of a sudden we're back to masking. I thought to myself, wow, I guess this is real, first and foremost. But, for the kids, I certainly would like to have a season. Whether it's the 7 games and a playoff. If we could get through that would be great. That's the best I can give you.
That's all. That works, and you're honest with me. You always have been, and I appreciate that. I hope you have a season. I really do. And I was super negative of Legion trying it, but they got through it, and I'm happy for that.
Oh.
And that's great. Helena taking second. My Bozeman Bucks taking repeat because I'm a Buck. So
that's right.
It's been a good year for Bozeman. Bucks, Hawks. So
yeah,
when are the Bruins gonna?
We'll see what happens to Bozeman with the new split.
Is it going to be Kalispell? Is it going to be Flathead Glacier? I hope not. I mean, I don't want Gallatin to be Glacier and my Bozeman to.
Yeah. Well, I think this year Bozeman Hawks are going to be pretty solid. I mean, they have a pretty solid squad coming back. I know that. Coach Weshy does a good job. But I've even talked to him this summer when I was moving my daughter back to Bozeman and getting ready for school. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, this year we're going to be fine. He goes, and then I think there'll be a few thin years. We're going to take a hit, and then, the Raptors are going to have to rally and develop that senior leadership. But he goes, the split's going to be pretty solid. And as long as everybody abides by the, you're going here, you're going here. He goes, I think we'll be able to rebound. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It will be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see what East Helena does when they go varsity next year, too. And how that's going to impact Helena High, which could impact Capital in the long run, too.
It could.
Number-wise.
Yeah. People moving out there. And
a lot of unknowns.
A lot of unknowns.
It's not just a virus, Coach.
That's right.
It's everything.
Everything.
All right. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate your time. You can feel free to stick around if you want, unless you got stuff to do. But
okay, I'll stick around for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Paul Schwedelson of the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. We're gonna break down Jeff Choate's thoughts and his press conference yesterday. Kyle Mihelish, nobody is better. Of course, I'm going to say the exact same thing tomorrow to Scott Evans when he sits in that chair.
That's right.
There's nobody better than Scott Evans. But we got two great high school coaches, football coaches in the in Helena proper, with Capital and Helena High. Scott Evans will join us tomorrow, but we'll talk to Paul Schwedelson, Big Sky Conference, and Jeff Choate when we come back here. Jason Walker Show. Stay with us.
Store-wide savings are what you'll find when you shop for new home furnishings at Rucker's Furniture. This means tremendous values on Helena's largest in-stock selection of home furnishings. When you shop Rucker's, you'll find store-wide savings on the furniture you want for every room in your home. And you'll also find our selection of Serta iComfort, the most comfortable beds in Helena. 12-month financing is available with approved credit on most purchases over $289. Ask for details. You'll find store-wide savings at Rucker's Furniture, 1010 Dearborn, Helena.
Dinner's Done Right is open and ready for you to stop in and stock up for the summer. How does a Big Sky flank steak sound? Or a sage roasted pork loin? June's menu also includes a Parmesan tilapia and a variety of fantastic chicken cuisines and more. And if that's not enough, Dinner's Done Right's Grab and Go Soup, Salad, and Nacho Bar is back as well, with one exception. The delightful staff now will make it for you. And don't forget deliveries to Bozeman and Great Falls on select days. Stop in at 1212 Cedar Street in Helena or visit dinnersdoneright.com. Have you thought about buying a home and just don't know where to begin? Well, when it comes to one of the most important purchases one can make, we understand it can be frustrating and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. Let the Major Mortgage team help you with all your mortgage needs. Major Mortgage means major service, and we would love the opportunity to help you today. Give J.R. McFadden, NMLS number 1246357, a call today at 406-465-1918, or you can visit him at 2001 11th Avenue, Building A, Suite 3 in Helena. Major Mortgage is a division of AMCAP Mortgage, NMLS number 129122, equal housing lender.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call State Farm agent Mike Miller in Helena today. Yes, it's true that Montana is a long way from the Gulf Coast, but you can bring that Cajun flavor home with a stop at Cafe Zydeco. From po' boys to classic sandwiches, Cafe Zydeco has all the best Cajun in town. Are you in the mood for seafood gumbo or crawfish etouffee? Maybe you're craving jambalaya with some shrimp and grits. Head in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or call ahead for pickup or delivery. Cafe Zydeco will fix all your southern cravings, even on a chilly Montana day. Cafe Zydeco is a proud sponsor of The Jason Walker Show. Do you love to look at photos of Montana, from animals to landscapes and more? Are you looking for a place to get your senior pictures or family portraits done? Are you a business owner looking to upgrade the decor in your offices? Well, look no further than Mark LaRoe Photography. Mark has been shooting beautiful photos all across the Treasure State, from rodeos to portraits, and would love to work with you. Visit marklaroephotography.com to see many masterpieces of his work. Then give him a call to schedule your own photo shoot. Or to purchase one of his fantastic pieces, stop by Spirit of the Big Sky Gallery on Custer in Helena. marklaroephotography.com.
Welcome back to the Jason Walker Show.
Welcome back, Jason Walker. Oh, is my microphone on? Is my mic? Hello, check 1, 2. There we go. Oh, I got to turn the headphones up. There it is. I don't even know what's going on. Jason Walker Show, Major Mortgage Mancave. My Kyle Mihelish sticking around. He wants to hear what Coach Choate and we'll break down Coach Choate with Paul Schwedelson. We'll do that here in a couple of seconds. On this day in history still to come. Don't forget tomorrow, Scott Evans, Helena High football coach, will be in studio. And Amanda Robertson, LPGA golfer, will join us Thursday, unfortunately, on the phone. And then Friday, Lance Hartzler, who covers Northern Arizona athletics, and I believe a great reporter from the Pac-12 Network will join us Friday as well. And I'm thinking next week we're going to have a huge guest on the show. All right, so we know about Coach Choate's comments Friday in The Athletic with Bruce Feldman. We broke those down. We know about yesterday's press conference. We played you a few of his sound bites. And to really break it down is, well, there's nobody better than somebody who was there. And it is Paul Schwedelson, and he joins us now from the Bozeman Daily Chronicle here on the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. First off, man, I appreciate you joining us. This has been kind of a crazy, well, I guess I want to say last couple of days, but really the last 4 or 5 months. And it's just keep getting crazier and crazier. Hour by hour, almost, it seems, Paul.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just sitting here and a little while ago, and all of a sudden, it's like you see the Pac-12. All of a sudden, is postponing all sports through the end of the calendar year, and all of a sudden, we've been so much, focused so much thinking about football, and now you start thinking about winter sports and men's and women's basketball and all the other sports as well. Now being affected too. But you're right, it's crazy. And I mean, the thing I always think about too is like, none of us have like lived through this before. It's pretty, like I said, it's crazy. It's just really, it's the only way to really describe it, I guess.
No, it's absolutely true. Paul Schwedelson, Schwedelson joining us here. Jason Walker Show on the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. All right, so Jeff Choate has been very open and very honest in his entire career at Montana State. But Friday in The Athletic, and then again yesterday in his Zoom meeting with reporters, he doesn't hold back. And that's why I wanted to get you on, because you know the guy. We all know the guy. He's so good and very, like I said, open and upfront and honest. He's very, let's start with The Athletic, where he basically told the NCAA they need to figure their stuff out because amateurism, is, as we know it, is gone. And because of the Power Five, the Big Sky Conference isn't going to have a season till the spring, hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean, he made so many different and interesting points in that article. And one thing also, too, is like whenever college sports return, they're going to be different than what they were previously, So you talk about transfer rules and immediate eligibility being allowed, and name, image, and likeness, and players being able to profit off that. So like that's going to be changing too, which is a whole. We could have a whole other conversation about that as well.
Very true.
And in terms of his team and in terms of the schedule, I think, and he made this point at the Big Sky Media Day as well. Talking about like he wants to. If they're going to play, then play. But if not, not.
Right.
But just have a plan and stick to it. And this whole going back and forth and waffling and holding out hope that really now we can look back and say, now that we know what's occurred and, pushing the conference season of the spring, it's hard to say, really how much changed from June to now. And it's just a difficult situation for a lot of those players who are just kind of, just caught in this limbo of not knowing what's going to come of their season. And now they're talking about playing in the spring, and there's a lot of skepticism about what that will look like and how feasible that is. And so, I think one of the, the biggest things that just resonated was just, Choate being upset at the NCAA regarding that. And, then in terms of the money aspect too, because, one of the big takeaways from when the Big Sky announced it was pushing conference games to the spring, one of the big takeaways from press conferences with Montana State Athletic Director Leon Costello, as well as Big Sky Commissioner Tom Whistle, was when the NCAA was going back and forth, and it feels like so long ago already, but last week there was a lot of criticism of the NCAA when the Big Sky announced they're going to wait for the NCAA Board of Governors meeting, and the Board of Governors meeting comes out and they don't make any decisions, and they delay, and then they put it back on each division within the NCAA to make any decisions, and there was just a lot of confusion there. But one thing that was really important and really impactful was the NCAA put out the requirement of the testing of every player and athlete a maximum of 72 hours before every competition for a high-risk sport like football.
Right.
A lot of schools in the Big Sky couldn't do that, just financially, in terms of paying private labs and, where these schools are located, the communities that they're in. I mean, I can speak about, Bozeman and Gallatin County. Right now, a big focus in Gallatin County is making sure that there's enough tests for people who are symptomatic, and, asymptomatic tests are not really as available, just because there's priorities on contact tracing and, identifying people that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like everyone is just handing out a test to every person.
Right.
And that's where, and I know that, Leon Costello said that he felt confident that Montana State would be able to handle some of those requirements, but a lot of other schools in the Big Sky couldn't. And so that was a big issue. And so that's something that Jeff Choate pointed out too in that article, was like the NCAA kind of backed some of these schools into a corner,
yep,
in a sense, because they couldn't afford that testing. But maybe the bigger schools at Power 5 levels could, multiple times a week.
And I think I think that's a big thing to focus on too, is, like even Coach Choate talked about it yesterday with Northern Colorado and Portland State and such, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the economics of testing, forget just the money aspect, but how do you get that turnaround? I waited 16 days, Paul, between getting my COVID test and getting the test results back. And football players are supposed to get this within 72 hours before a game. That's just not feasible in a lot of instances.
Right. And so that's, an issue going on. And obviously the testing is important in terms of, people talk about the health and safety of the athletes. And, obviously, there's conversations about, that being the primary driver of these decisions. But it's important, I think, to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and understand how this is happening. And so much of it is financially driven.
Absolutely. Paul Schwedelson joining us. Jason Walker Show does a great job with the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, along with Colton Poole down there in the Gallatin Valley. Yesterday, the Zoom press conference, a couple of things that really stood out to me, Paul, were when Coach Choate talked about, look, the only way, and he doesn't sound to me, in my opinion, positive there's even going to be a spring season, because the Power 5, and we're seeing, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 making their announcement today, but the Power 5 basically has to move to the spring, it sounds like, for the FCS to even have a chance at a season. Did you get that? Was that your takeaway too?
Yeah, and I guess I don't know all the logistics. I don't think any of us really know the logistics of how a spring spring season could work. But I agree with you in terms of, it didn't seem like Jeff Choate was so optimistic about the spring. He was very realistic about all of the challenges that would involve, and one of them being the turnaround until fall of 2021. And Jeff Choate made the point of saying, college football might be able to survive one fall without football.
Yep.
But he made the point of saying it'll be much tougher to survive two.
Well, and that's
and
a
which
lot
I think
of it.
is an important.
Go ahead.
That's an important point to think about.
Yep. Well, and part of that, I feed off of this, Paul, is I've been saying it, a lot of people have been saying it, and Coach Choate said it yesterday. The turnaround from the spring to the fall is, he said you have to focus on 2021 fall first and foremost, because the players' turnaround, the physicality, plus just everything involved. He talked about you're going to have to start winter or spring camp really right after the first of the year in January. That's not feasible in Montana.
Right, and he made the point of saying how, a big reason why he is such a downer on spring ball is because a lot of times the weather is just so challenging that they can't even really accomplish much in their practices.
Right.
And so, obviously I think if they were to play in the spring, I think they'd figure out a way to make it work. And, if the season starts in March, let's say you play regular season in March and April, and then you have postseason in May, and then, I'm tossing this out,
Right.
I'm not necessarily, I don't know any of this. None of this is already decided, but let's toss out a Memorial Day championship weekend. The weather in February, isn't necessarily that much different compared to maybe November and December, if they're making a deep playoff run. But it's obviously not ideal. And, again, that turnaround is a big factor, and there's just a lot of questions that would go into it. And I mean, in terms of the non-conference teams in the spring too, I don't even know how that would work, because if you're talking about an 8-game conference season in the spring, you're squeezing in a lot of games into a short amount of time. And obviously the big question that, none of us know the answer to is how much better will the situation be in February? Obviously the potential of either vaccines or the situation nationally, with the virus is, we have to see how things go. But obviously it's tricky, and it's very challenging to kind of foresee what's going to happen.
Paul Schwedelson joining us from the Bozeman Daily Chronicle here on the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. Couple final questions for you, Paul. But when you go back to yesterday's press conference with Coach, and he talked for about 34 minutes with some questions in there. But one of the big things that stuck out there was basically every one of his answers stuck out. And somebody asked the question of the fifth-year seniors, the extra year of eligibility, and all of this. The numbers, like Coach Choate said, this is going to take years to trickle back down to numbers where we see them before COVID, as far as how many people on scholarship, how many kids on a roster. And, he brought up the point, there's going to be 44 seniors in the fall of 2021 for Montana State. And, where do we go with number-wise here?
Right, that's a big question, and if they play in the spring, and let's say everyone uses their fall 2020 eligibility in spring 2021, it's the same school year, so I don't necessarily know how much that would be affected, and I think, obviously at this point, it's hard to say what the best case scenario would be, but it'd be great if the spring, if, think people are healthy and, the virus situation dies down, and either the vaccine or whatever it might be, if the spring season can be a success. The challenge obviously being that turnaround like we talked about. But then you talk about players maybe opting out, because if you're talking about maybe a squeezed in season, a compromised season, we don't know whether or not there could be fans at games. There are going to be players that maybe might say, hey, I'd rather wait a few more months and opt out.
Yep.
And then, that would affect the eligibility thing. And, obviously spring sports this past year, a few months ago, kind of dealt with somewhat of a similar situation, but it's so much different because of the roster sizes of those sports. And, a lot of those are partial scholarship sports as well.
Right.
That's the big difference between, when you talk about, the numbers of scholarships, FCS football teams have 63 scholarships. Is much different than, a lot of other sports that are being played in the spring. So that's a challenge. And there's just so many questions, and we just don't know.
No. But I think, Paul, what's comforting is Coach Choate's transparency. He said, look, this is a players-driven program. They have as much say as anybody in that's involved with Montana State football. And I think that's helped Montana State and his players kind of figure things out a little bit. And it seems to be, I know some guys are going to opt out and all of that, but it seems to be that Coach is comfortable letting players make some decisions and have a say in what goes on with their futures.
Yeah, he made an interesting point that a lot of the players who are really being really vocal about all of these situations that are going on, who are really trying to go out of their way to make sure that their voices are heard, Jeff Choate made the point of saying, look at the programs that those players are from, which was an interesting point he made because, like you said, he was making the point that, Montana State being a player-driven program, they haven't really had as much players being vocal outwardly, even though, and like kind of making the point that internally they feel like they do have a voice already,
right?
Which was an interesting point as well. And kind of like you said previously, just about everything he said was an interesting point.
Yeah, no, and it was, and he brought one. It really stuck out to me because I cover the NAIA, specifically the Frontier here in the state of Montana, more than the Big Sky. But he brought up the NAIA, he brought up the schools in Montana, he brought up Division II, and looking at like an Eastern Washington, a Portland State, or Northern Colorado that are having trouble financially, not just athletically but also academically. And maybe they drop back to Division II. He said the landscape after this fall and potentially going into fall of next year, the landscape of college football at the lower divisions will change forever, and it's going to look different a year from now.
Yeah, and another thing that he said that kind of stuck out to me, and it's worth keeping in mind that Jeff Choate played at Montana Western,
right?
Like in NAIA school, like you mentioned, and went on to become, he was a high school history teacher for a number of years, kind of before he got back into got into college coaching. And so, he made the point of saying, something that's what's important to keep in mind too is like when a lot of times, like the average person, when you think of college football, a lot of times you might think of, the big time, SEC Power 5 type levels of college football. And, if you think about, who are going to become teachers in your community or who are going to become the youth football coaches in your community, so many of those people are coming from Division III, Division II, NAIA schools, FCS schools that, players who might not be on full scholarships, might be on partial scholarships, might be preferred walk-ons, and kind of going back a little bit to what he said in The Athletic in that article, it's important to keep in mind, like, this idea that college football is beyond just that highest level. And it's just so much different at all these different levels. And a lot of it goes back to financials. And, the situation that everyone's kind of going through is just really challenging. And the NCAA's indecision, a week ago didn't really help anyone.
No, it definitely didn't. Paul Schwedelson, our guest here, Jason Walker Show. And you mentioned that, he said he got the idea from MSU SID Bill Lamberty, who, nobody does it better than Lambo. But, like you said, the tip of the iceberg is that, the top 40 teams, and I can't remember who, it might have been Coulter Nuanez, but said that, it's even the top 40 of those, of the Power 5. That tip of that iceberg is what everybody thinks of, like you said, with college football, and nobody thinks of the smaller divisions and the trickle down. It's like the Titanic. It hit an iceberg, but it was, 1,000 times bigger under the water than and that's the case with football and, other sports, Paul, at the lower levels. Everybody thinks FBS and those top 10 teams, but it's the other ones that are making a big impact, at the NAI level and the other divisions in NCAA.
Right, and something he kind of said along the similar lines was like, if decisions continue to just be, strung out over time, and these players are put in this situation where they don't have a clear idea of what's to come in the future, there's a lot of players who might just be like, you know what, I'm good, I'll stop playing, like, just kind of upset at the situation that they're kind of being thrown into because of the lack of leadership from those higher levels in terms of decision making on a broad level. He made the point of saying that he feels supported at MSU, but just in terms of the overarching aspect of the NCAA, it's really tough for the players. Just kind of being put in a situation, and obviously we've seen on social media, there's a group of players who are talking about opting out and with their list of demands and different types of threats, and then there's another faction that tweeting out the "we want to play," and there's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, and it's ultimately just a difficult situation when you're a player and you're training and you have this mindset so focused on what your next game is, or preparing for their next game, whether that's 8 months away or 5 months away or 5 weeks away. Right. All that affects players, and that makes it really difficult to kind of handle that type of situation when you don't have that clarity. And that was something that when the Big Sky announced it was moving its conference season to the spring, something that players and Jeff Choate and Leon Costello said at Montana State was that now they have another step to shoot for, because if they had continued to try for this fall, there'd just be so much doubt of how long is the season going to last. At any moment, could it get shut down? Yada, 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 which would all be a challenge. And, obviously, some of those questions, we'll have to see how things go. Some of those questions could still exist in the spring. But obviously, we'll have to see how things go. And ultimately, I think, we're all just hoping that at some point we all get past this, worldwide.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Paul, final point, and I've taken up a lot of your time, but I appreciate the your outlook on this. The final point that Coach Choate made in The Athletic and then again yesterday was, this decision should have been made in June as far as the fall season for 2020. The spring 2021 season, he said yesterday, we have to have a decision made by November. We can't be waiting as long as we did and wait till the second week of August for this fall season. For spring next year, this decision has to be made November. How much weight do you think his words will have across the country with that? Because I agree with him.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily, just because, you look at this whole situation. Does anyone really know what these decision makers are really paying attention to?
Oh, no.
Just because, so I guess I don't know about that, but it is an interesting point in terms of, like, he was making the point, and I think it's a valuable one to keep in mind. It's just like, it's just so important to have a clear plan. And if you know Jeff Choate, you know that he is very committed. If he sets something in his mind, he's very committed to that. Right. He has a vision for how he wants his program run. He has a vision for, he walks into press conferences, he has like a little note card of all the points he wants to touch on in his opening statement. He's very driven in that sense, very committed to, this is what I'm going to talk about, and then he goes and talks about it. Yep. And so that's the point that he was making, I think. And it's an important one, just because he was looking after his players too, about how difficult that was, dealing with a situation where they start workouts, have to shut workouts down, they get going again, and then they try playing, they have practice, and then the season gets moved to the spring. It's just such a challenging thing to have to deal with. So I don't know how much weight necessarily his words hold, but you'd think that just after knowing how much criticism decision makers have gotten, maybe they'll change their process, in the future.
No doubt about it. He did throw in some comedy yesterday too, already claiming the Big Sky Conference Championship, the state championship, because they were the last ones to practice in the state of Montana. That was humorous, and it's up online. It's a great press conference, some great questions from awesome reporters. Paul, appreciate your time. And keep up the good work down there. I'm hoping we get some sort of maybe a Bobcat basketball season we can talk about maybe this winter. But if things look like they do in the Pac-12, I don't think we'll have anything until at least the first of the year. And Eastern Washington, too, we didn't even talk about this yet, Paul, is they canceled all fall sports to the spring, and that includes volleyball and everything. And so they're not even going to try. They're the first in the Big Sky. So do you think we'll see, real quick, do you think we'll see Montana State and the rest of the Big Sky volleyball go the way of Eastern Washington too?
I would lean toward probably. Obviously, we have to wait to see what decisions are made, but just the way things are trending, it just seems like such a challenge to be.
I agree.
Playing sports at the college level. In the near future.
Paul, like I said, appreciate the time, man. You can read him, at P. Schweds on the Twitter. And good stuff. You and Colton do a great job down there in Bozeman. That's my hometown, so great coverage of the Bucks this year, and good coverage of Montana State. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk soon, my man.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Paul Schwedelson joining us from the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, and appreciate his time today. And I hope you got some insight on Coach Choate, what he's like if you haven't ever found out. Now you know. He's open and honest. He even said in the press conference yesterday, from his comments to The Athletic, where he was brutally honest, and he said, look, a lot of the coaches were saying across the country were saying the same thing, but he goes, if I'm going to say it, I'm going to go on record. He said, I'm not, paraphrasing, he goes, I'm not afraid of losing my job at Montana State. I'm not afraid of getting a job in the future. He goes, I'm going to go on record and not hide behind it. So good on him. This segment brought to you by Mark LaRoe Photography. Check it out, marklaroephotography.com. Book all your family senior portrait stuff. You can also purchase anything from the Mark LaRoe Photography Spirit of the Big Sky Gallery. And just check it out, marklaroephotography.com. All right, real quick, let's get to On This Day in History. It is August the 11th. It is Presidential Joke Day. And Joe Biden, who will not be president, picked his vice president nominee today, and it's a joke. But National Raspberry Bombay Day. Is it Bombay? Bombay Day? It is also National Sons and Daughters Day. 1919, Green Bay Packers football club founded by George Calhoun and Curly Lambeau, named after sponsor Indian Packing Company. Would it be that today in our cancel culture? 1929, Babe Ruth becomes the first to hit 500 home runs. The guy that was in second at the time had like 220, less than half. 1950, hitting just 279, Joe DiMaggio was benched for the first time. Hit 279. Guys hit 230 and 220 and get to play because they hit bombs nowadays. 1974, Lee Trevino wins the first of his two PGA championships at Tanglewood. 1984, Carl Lewis duplicates Jesse Owens' 36 feet, winning his fourth Olympic gold medal. 2008, the 4x100 meter freestyle relay team, Michael Phelps, Garrett Weber-Gale, Cullen Jones, and Jason Lezak beat France by 8 seconds to win the gold medal and smash the world record at the Beijing Olympics. That was such a great race. Jason Lezak anchored that one. Unbelievable. His split world record. I mean, 8 seconds in the pool is a lot. 2016, Michael Phelps then wins the 200 meter IM at Rio. He becomes the third athlete and the first swimmer to win 4 consecutive Olympic golds in one event. Happy birthday today. 1915, Jean Parker was born. Louise Stephanie Zelinska. She was an American actress, starred in a couple of movies, Little Women, Beyond Tomorrow. Why is that important? Well, she was born in Butte, Montana. 1953, happy birthday, Hulk Hogan, born in Augusta, Georgia. Herb Brooks passed away on this date in a car wreck in 2003, the great ice hockey coach. And Robin Williams died on this date in 2014. Let's see, let's do this.
We're almost at the end of the show. What did we learn? And what did he miss? Time for the walk-off.
Time for the walk-off, and it is brought to you by Cafe Zydeco, 625 Euclid in Helena. Check them out and get some great food. They are open 11 to 8 through Friday. All right. And then they have different hours for Saturday and Monday. Close on Sunday, right? Is that right? Let me look. Yep. 9 to 3 on Saturday, closed on Sunday. All right. Thanks to Kyle Mihelish, Capital football coach, for joining us today. And always fun time to check in with Coach. He's great. He also did tell me the youth football, small fry program in Helena is going to happen no matter what, I'm told. And if it doesn't happen, if it's not approved by the city county health department, they're going to go to Montana City and Jeff City to play. How about that? Something to keep an eye on. Maybe we'll talk to Scott Evans about that tomorrow. Paul Schwedelson from the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. Appreciate his time as well, breaking down Jeff Choate's comments. Went a little long today. Had a lot of fun today, though. Scott Evans will be in studio tomorrow, Helena High football coach, and we'll talk more. Hopefully, positive football stuff. Had a great time. Thanks to you for listening and watching. We'll have the whole show back up on JasonWalkerShow.com here in a little bit. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 with Scott Evans. Again, JasonWalkerShow.com if you miss anything. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Jason Walker Show is produced by the Jason Walker Media Company. Any reuse, rebroadcast, or retransmission without the express written consent of the Jason Walker Show is strictly prohibited. Just listen, watch, and enjoy.